biggest reason there's so much controversy right now is because you have multiple sides. You have the patients, the card holders who need their medicine. You have the the caregivers, the people who have been licensed to grow specifically for certain patients. And then you have the dispensaries, which kind of exist in this like legal gray area at the moment. And then you have the government, who wants to regulate it. And then you also have these businesses that want to get in on the ground floor, because marijuana is going to become a booming business as it has in lots of other states. Well, and the big issue is the issue of monopolization. And there's a lot of push from conservative advocates for recreational and medical marijuana to regulate it so that it's more business oriented, and less of the caregivers, the personal interactions. They want to collect taxes on it, and they also a big part of it is with the recent law changes in Michigan. They want to increase what they call regulations. So there's certain things like dispensaries and caregivers now have to have armored transport.
Wow.
If they want to transport any kind of amount of marijuana, like if they're just transporting an ounce or 2 ounces, they need an armored vehicle to do that. And what that does is that pushes the small scale dispensaries. It pushes those individual caregivers to the side because they don't have the $25,000 to continually pay for these armored transport vehicles. And so the big push currently right now with the more conservative government in Michigan, with Rick Snyder and all of that, there's this desire to allow it to become more monopolized and more monetized because they're really concerned in how much money can be gained from this while also not wanting to support allowing recreational. So they're just trying to milk the cash from what we have going on medically in Michigan right now. I think a lot of that has to do with misinformation. And I mean, there's a long history of a misinformation campaign against marijuana. I mean, if you go back, 1700s, it was just very commonplace for people to be growing weed, to be growing hemp. But then you had these paper businesses who saw that hemp paper was going to basically take over their industry using trees to make paper. And this is actually a fun history fact. This is where the term yellow journalism comes from, because the term refers to these paper industries spreading all of these lies and misinformation about marijuana. The whole, weed makes white women want to talk to and dance with black men. The racism that was so intertwined with that. And you also see it today with, racial prejudice against Hispanic immigrants, that, they're drug dealers, they're bringing all of this. And then further from that, I mean, if you jump forward a bit, you're looking at Nixon-Reagan era war on drugs, and one of the studies done was they put gas masks on these little monkeys, and then they pumped the masks full of marijuana smoke for over 5 minutes straight. And then sure enough, they died, and they were like, well, why did they die? And they look and like, there's brain cells. Their brain cells died, so marijuana kills brain cells. Not considering the fact that you deprive any creature of oxygen for 5 minutes, not going to be great, and you're going to have brain cells dying. And then you also have the propaganda from the pharmaceutical industries who they don't want people to use marijuana because they want them to use benzos. They want them to use all of these other drugs. And not saying that, pharmaceutical drugs are bad in and of itself, but the monetary push behind the pharmaceutical companies to say that no, we'd rather have this 3-year-old baby addicted to benzos than allowing them to use like a THC tincture. You know, I think it really just comes down to money at that point. And same with the, you know, big alcohol industry and the big tobacco industry, because they want people to smoke cigarettes and they want people to drink alcohol instead of smoking weed instead.